Hi there. In this lecture we see Mikhail Tal against Mikhail Botvinnik in the 1960 World Championship match round 7. So Tal with the white pieces kicks off with e4. We see a Caro-Kann, d4, d5, knight c3, d takes e4, knight takes e4, now the classical variation, bishop f5. Tal retreats the knight, bishop g6, and now knight 1 to e2. Quite a lot more popular is actually h4 in this position. So for example, after h6, knight f3, knight d7, h5, bishop h7. This has all been seen before and is considered one of the main lines where white has a small edge. But here we see the slightly unusual knight 1 to e2, which does have some major upsides to it. For example, knight f4 to hit the bishop. We see knight d7. Quite often e6 is played here. For example, knight f4, bishop d6, and this situation is interesting, and white ends up a little bit better here. But we see knight d7 in this game, h4, h6, knight f4 here, bishop h7, bishop c4, and now e5. This seems an interesting central pawn break by black. Queen e2 pinning that pawn, queen e7 unpinning, d takes e5, and now queen takes e5. If knight takes e5, bishop b3, this is an interesting situation which can lead to a very interesting position, for example like this. This is a very interesting fictional continuation where if black's too aggressive and the king kind of stuck in the center with the bishop blocked in, this could be problematic. This is highly fictional, of course, but this is just an interesting situation which could potentially be an outcome on a good day for white. So knight takes e5. Yes, it looks as though it's got potential here for white to do some tricks there and try and exploit the king in the center. Okay, but queen takes e5, bishop e3, bishop c5, bishop takes c5, the queen's come off, the queen takes e2, check, king takes e2, knight takes c5. And you'll note here that black is actually attacking c2. White plays this rook to e1, so indirectly defending c2, because there'll be check if black took on c2. We see knight f6, just to put that on the board. So bishop takes c2, there's king d2, check, and then winning the bishop. So knight f6, b4, knight cd7. If knight c to e4, king f3 is a very strong move. That's a nasty pin. If g5, knight d3, g4, king f4, and this situation, that knight is precarious after taking on d5. There's f3, and this is actually winning the knight eventually. So that would be quite nice for white. The white king is not getting mated. So we see knight cd7, king f1, check. And this pawn still needs to be attended to. We have bishop b3, and now g5. hg, hg, knight h3, rook g8, rook ed1, and now a5. This actually fractures white's pawns a little now after b takes. Rook takes. So structurally, it seems as though actually structurally black's got a slightly better pawn structure. However, white has a bit of pressure after rook d6 on this d file. King e7, the rook's double, rook e5. Now perhaps here bishop g6 could arguably be be a little bit more solid, holding the h5 square. So for example, f3, knight c5, it seems as though black shouldn't have any problems really. But the way this is played after rook e5, there's an interesting tactical move which is kind of permitted by this rook e5. Can you spot what that is for 100 points? Okay. Knight h5, trying to deflect the knight away from d7. So we see bishop g6. Interesting is g4, for example, knight 3 to f4, rook h8. This situation should be about even. Black doesn't seem to have too much to be concerned about. But in the game, after bishop g6, in fact, there is a little tactic now played by Tal. Can you spot what that is for 50 points? Okay, rook takes d7, check, knight takes, rook takes d7, check, king takes. So ordinarily, this little combination, 2 pieces for a rook ordinarily, would be a good trade for white. However, there is still the issue of c2 after rook c5. And this knight's on the rim. Is a knight on the rim dim here? Is that knight dim? We see 2 knights on the rim now after knight h6. Okay, so there's potential to win f7. That's moved. If bishop takes c2 here, knight takes f7 check, and knight takes g5, it's pretty nice for white. So the pawn is moved out of the way. Knight g4, and now a pawn bites the dust. Bishop takes c2. But on the other hand, knight takes f6. We have bishop takes b3, a takes. If knight e4 check, that doesn't help matters to take the rook here. This is, after check, this is just an even position. So a takes b3, leaving 2 knights against the rook, and a kind of virtual race of passed pawns. Now, once this pawn goes, there's going to be a pawn race, and these 2 guys trying to race down there, potentially. We see knight takes g5, a nice little tactic based on knight e4. So this liberates both pawns. So rook takes b3 is played. If rook takes g5, knight e4 check, and that's fairly convincing. There's no big issue there. That's just a piece up. So rook takes b3, f4, rook b1 check, king e2, rook b2 check, king f3, rook b3 check, king g4, rook b2 g3, b5. The knight gets out of the way of the f-pawn, even though the g-pawn's locked in by his own king. The f-pawn is ready to roll. So f5, b4, f6. A bit of a race here between these guys. Rook a2, f7, rook a8. And now, a very interesting move indeed. For 200 points, what would you play in this position? This really helps win the race, this next move. A very delicate, precise move indeed. What would you play here? Okay. Knight h7. Very, very clever stuff. Based on if the king took, then knight f6 and knight e8 interrupting the f8 square. So, yeah, this is a really, really cool move. If knight f6 check instead, this is all a bit tricky. You know, for example, here we can see that it gets a little bit tricky, but white should be better in these scenarios in any case. With precise play, it is very tricky, but with precise play, white's knights should overcome the rook. For example, knight takes c4. Black is getting into big trouble here now, for example, like this. That is another way forward, but there's a lot of accuracy needed there. Knight h7 is very, very good. We see b3, knight d2, b2, and now the only move to win is played in this position at move 46. What do you think that move is for 100 points? The only move which is actually winning. Okay, it's king f3. The king needs to go to f3 here. If king f4, king d4, this situation is only enough for a draw. There's a repetition of an attack on that knight. So king f3, after king d4, now king e2 is the only move to win. c5. If king c3, then white can queen, and this situation is very good, because knight takes c4 is possible. Because if b1, knight a3, queen, and the queen goes to the fork. Okay, so we see king e2, c5, pawn queens, rook takes, knight takes, c4. Knight e6 check, king d5. Knight f4 check, king d4. Knight b1. And here, Botvinnik actually resigned. This is the end of the game at move 52. If c3, king d1, and there's a blockade here now. After king e3, knight e2, for example, that's easily winning here. After king c2, the king can't take because this pawn will run away to queen. So white at leisure can munch the pawns. So yes, after knight b1, that was the end of the game. A very important game for Mikhail Tal in round 7. So a very, very interesting endgame imbalance. 2 knights versus a rook. Precisely played. Overcoming Mikhail Botvinnik there. Hope you enjoyed that. Some instructive points, takeaway points. Precision needed in the endgame. Great precision often is needed in endgames. They are pretty tricky in their own right. Okay, thanks so much. Hi there. Thanks for getting to the end of the YouTube video. If you would like to see other Mikhail Tal games, I actually have an amazing course for Mikhail Tal, which is currently at 4.9 with over 400 students. You can check this out from the Kingscrusher TV page. So Chess Strategy and Tactics, Mikhail Tal's amazing games. You can check out some free preview videos as well here. If you do expand all sections, you can see the preview links to get some free previews. So I hope you do check out this course index and the free previews. So I really had a thrilling time actually checking out Mikhail Tal's games. So yeah, the YouTube video here you saw was just a sample from this course. I hope you check it out. Okay, thanks so much. Oh, by the way, comments, questions, likes, shares, all appreciated. And if you did get to this part of the video, please do leave some sort of comment like Tal fan. Okay, thanks again.